What's going on, guys? I am glad that you're here at Saber Shoots, back with another review. This is a 500 round review of my P320X carry. Now, if you look back into the history of my channel in 2018, I did a really terribly configured review of the X carry. That X carry ended up getting sold, so this is a 500 round review of this specific setup. This is not in any way meant to be like a continued review from that first X carry. This is going to be all on its own, 100% reliable so far through my first 500 rounds, and I'm here to talk about this a little bit. P320s are getting to the point where they are as customizable as Glocks, and the reliability is also there, which I think is everybody's first thought. I also think that they just look so dang sleek and so good. Sig really knows what they're doing when it comes to aesthetics. But one thing that's really cool about the P320 is the P320 collective that Sig is starting. They are starting to bring in other companies and working with them in order to make it so that everybody can optimize the P320 to their liking. And that's one thing that I love about it, is the modularity. We'll get into that a little bit as we're talking about this. So let's start from the front and work our way back. I want to start with the sights. They're Sig-Lite night sights from Sig, obviously, with that rear plate that has the sight sitting on it. They are 3-dot night sights. The rear sight, they've got little white around the edges and then tritium vials in the middle. The front sight has a nice big bright green dot, and then also the tritium vial in the center. I enjoy that because this is my nightstand gun. If I ever have to reach for this in the night, I do have the light, but if the light died on me or who knows what, then I would have the night sight so that I could still line my sights up reliably in the dark. So I really like that. Another thing it does is it helps you find your firearm in the dark if you're reaching around for it and you're a little groggy. These things glow really hot in the night. They almost light up my nightstand in a way. So anyway, I have no issues with the sights, and I'll talk about the future of this gun as far as sights goes in a little bit. The next thing I want to talk about is the lightning cut at the front. The biggest thing for me with this is I think that it looks cool, but some people would say that it probably reduces the weight of the slide, which reduces the reciprocating mass when you're shooting, which makes it easier to mitigate recoil, which is a big deal for a lot of people with the high bore axis of this firearm. Now, one thing I would say to the people who complain about that is you probably have some sissy wrists and need to work on that just a little bit. I'm not saying your gripes are unwarranted. I'm just saying that I'll roll in some B-roll of me shooting this in slow motion, and there is nothing about this firearm that the recoil is unreasonable or unmanageable. At the same time, it's nice for them to remove weight from the slide so that not so much mass is sliding back. That way you don't have as much weight that you have to work with on that recoil. I also think that it just makes the firearm look cool. And at the end of the day, if you ask people, the guy whose gun looks the coolest typically shoots the fastest. That's not true at all. But at the same time, it is a good looking addition. Now let's get into some stuff on the frame. First of all, full 1913 Picatinny rail, CZ, and Glock need to get on board with that, in my opinion. There is this nice cutout in the front that works almost as a gas pedal that comes from Polymer 80 in their grip frame. So if I get my full firing grip out here, I can shelve that thumb in there. That'll also help me to push the gun down and mitigate that recoil. I think it's just a nice little addition. And even if you don't use it, because some people's thumbs won't reach that far, it does look good. They put their texturing in there as well, just as a little added, you know, cool factor. So moving back from there, we have our takedown lever, which also is like a takedown pin at the same time. You pull the slide back, you rotate it forward, and then you release the slide and you can take the slide off. Then, if you want to take out the fire control unit and take the fire control unit out of this piece of junk and put it into this beautiful masterpiece, you punch it out from here with this hole. You just pop it out, pull your fire control unit out, stick it in your new frame, put it all back in, throw the slide back on, and it's that easy to change to a new grip frame. Now this is where I'll talk about it, because it's kind of cool. There are many companies that are coming out with grip frames for the P320, not just Polymer 80. There's also the two that come to mind are Icarus Precision. They make aluminum ones that are really sick looking. And then Wilson Combat also came out with a couple. They have a long slide version and a version that is identical to this one. Obviously, there are some things that are different, like the way that the palm swells and blah, 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 grip angles and whatnot. I'll get into that later with this firearm at least. But anyway, it's really cool to see all that aftermarket support for the P320. Let's talk about the grip. I really like this grip angle. It's a 1911 style grip angle, which means it is straight up and down. So if I pull up this one, you'll notice that there's a little palm swell back here and finger groove up at the front. I don't like those. I think that they are unnecessary and uncomfortable in the hand, and in my opinion, they don't help you shoot the gun any better. Here's the grip angle. It's not too far like a Glock, and it's not too straight up and down like an M&P. It's just right, nice in the middle. The grip texture is fantastic. It does not rub my shirts the wrong way, it does not rub my skin the wrong way, and it does not rip the flesh from my hands. I have really big, meaty palms, so this is a really good grip for me. I like that it's not skinny, but I can really get my fingers wrapped around it really nice. And then that with the combination of getting up under that beaver tail, I feel like I just have such a solid grip on this thing to the point where like recoil management just is not a problem. I can get sights back on target with this thing after recoil like that. I want to talk about the beaver tail. Super important to me is the beaver tail. You're not really going to be able to tell on camera, but I can tell from just looking at it. This beaver tail allows you to go much higher into the grip. It's also a bit flatter, and the biggest thing for me is it's wider and it's longer than the original. So this is where the comparison with this kind of stops. So we'll throw that over there because we're done with it and I can't even sell it because those things are only like 40 bucks and nobody wants one. So anyway, the beaver tail on this is fantastic, and if a handgun does not have a beaver tail, I do not want that handgun, and neither should you, because a beaver tail just lets you get up nice and high and get a really nice tight grip and really consistent grip on a firearm. If I go up so high that a slide bites me, that gun is stupid, and I shouldn't be shooting that gun unless it gets a beaver tail that lets me get up high without getting bit by the slide. Okay, going from there, we are now going to go to the magazine release, which is awesome. I've had no issues with it. It's chunky, it's textured, but it's not so big that your hand will accidentally hit it. If I've got my master grip here, I'll look inside my hands and I can see that I don't have any meaty palm on that whatsoever, so no problems there. In my other review of just the grip frame, it does pop out on the other side, which is something that usually causes me issues. I'll press it and then it won't come out because my hand is locking it on the other side. Haven't had any of those issues with this. The magazines go in and they come out really nice and smooth. Let's talk about our trigger. We'll pull out our empty magazine and do a nice safety check for all you Nazis out there who have nothing better to do than give people a hard time about that. Nice flat face trigger. I love flat face triggers. I wish every trigger was flat faced. We'll go ahead and we'll give you our very minimal take up. There it is. There is a little bit more. So we have hit a wall, but it's not the wall. So now I'm going to press. There's a little bit of mush, but it's gonna break right after this. Nice and crisp. Now I'm going to give you the reset. Now the reset is interesting. Sometimes there's a little extra click as you come forward, sometimes there's not. But the reset is very tactile and audible, and you will know when you've reset. So I'm going to let it up nice and slow. See, there's a little click. That is not the reset. That is the reset. And I'm hoping that on camera that sounds different. It does to me. We're back there. Let's do it one more time all the way through the motion. I'll bring it in nice and tight here for you. Up. See, little clicks. Little clicks. That neither of those were the reset. Big, heavy, clunky click. Now from there, I'm boop, back down into my wall already. So the take up, it's not a lot from the reset especially. And then a little bit of mush, and now it'll break. It's nice and predictable. It's crisp in my opinion. Some people think it's clunky and it sounds like an airsoft gun. I don't find that at all. I really like this trigger. I think this trigger is one of the reasons why I shoot this gun so well. Now the thing is, Apex does make a drop-in trigger. Agency also makes a drop-in trigger. So if you really don't like it, you can change it, and those companies are both really reputable and they make good products, so you can trust that those things will make an improvement for you in some way, shape, or form. Going down from there, we are getting into the Magwell. So I just want to talk about the Magwell that it came with. So the Magwell right out of the box for this Polymer 80 is really nice. It's ramped at the front and at the back. What the extra Magwell does from Steel City Arsenal is it increases the ramp at the back, and it gives you some interference here at the front, so that when you run into that at the front, it just guides it in. When you run into that ramp at the back, it just guides it in. It's also called a low profile Magwell. That's why it has the cuts out right here and here. We don't have the big flared out sides, because that's what would stick out if you were concealed carrying this thing with one of those. But as you'll notice, I throw it in there. I'm wearing a size medium shirt, and it disappears under it just fine with no Magwell protrusion whatsoever. So I have no complaints about the Magwells. Now, Sig magazines are good. I've had zero issues with them. I do have to push the base plate back a little bit every once in a while. It's not like walking itself off, but it does walk itself forward enough that it's like noticeably out of place, and then I just pop it back. So I don't know if that's because their little pin isn't quite like, I don't know, maybe the fitment's not perfect, which I don't expect it to be, but I haven't had issues with like these dropping and then the springs flying out or anything like that, and I haven't had any feeding issues either. These have fed perfectly every time. There's a little bit of wear and tear on them. Obviously, I'm really hard on my guns and my magazines as far as training goes, but you can also get your 21 rounders. I have one and I love it. When I'm carrying this in my sling bag, I throw a 21 rounder in it. When it's sitting on my nightstand, I throw a 21 rounder in it. But 17 rounds should be more than enough for whatever your purposes are. I'm confident that if I walk out the door with just these, that I will make it home no matter where I'm going. And I'll have enough rounds to sustain myself from point A to point B, which is home, and where I've got plenty of magazines and ammunition ready to go. That being said, I do Neomag carry the 21 rounder in my left pocket when I go out. Better safe than sorry. My motto, as always, is I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And that's where the inspiration for the light comes as well. This is an Inforce APLC. It's only 200 lumens, but in my opinion, that's bright enough. Especially for home defense use, which, like, this is mainly a home defense gun. It is also my everyday carry gun, but I'm not expecting to need to ID anything that's further than 20 yards away, and this will definitely do that for me. I don't go out in the dark very much these days. When you're married and have kids, you don't really do that. So the chances of me needing to use this to ID somebody outside in the wild is not very big. What I want is to hear a bump in the night and be able to grab my gun and turn this thing on and not blind myself by shining it on the wall. And this light, in my opinion, is one of the best compact carry lights in current existence. Unfortunately, it's not necessarily in current existence anymore because it's been discontinued, and it will be replaced by a 600 lumen version that is very similar in size and form. It definitely won't fit your same holsters, but it will be nice, simple, good looking, and have paddles, which I think the paddle activation is one of the best activations. I don't want to have to push a button forward like that. Now, I want to talk about upgrades a little bit here at the end. There's an obvious one, and that is the optic. I am planning on throwing this Holosun 507C on here with the help of an adapter plate from C&H Precision. You can find them on Instagram. They currently make one of these specific plates for the Walther guns that all have their optics mounting options. Now what's going to happen is that plate will come in and it's very low profile. It'll mount right here and screw into the holes that are made for the SIG optics and the Delta Point Pro, and then it will have an integrated rear sight that pops up that's pretty skinny and pretty low profile, and it will give me, I think it's a 1/3 witness through the window of my optic, and I will also have to change out my front sight to a specific height sight in order to get that co-witness that I want. I'm not saying I don't trust optics, I do, But as you know, my motto is I would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. That's as far as lights go. And once I throw an optic here, that'll also be how I go with sights. I would rather have backup sights and never need them than need backup sights and not have them. It's always smart to be prepared, but I am super excited to have this baby up here with the Donut of Death and the little, I think it's a 2 MOA version that I ended up going with. But you will see that in a little bit. At the end of the day, my opinion on this gun is it does a little bit of everything. You can get 21 rounders. It already carries 17 rounds. And even with the 17 rounders and the longer grip, it conceals really, really nicely. You can throw every light and laser combination on here that you can think of that you would want. You can get your optics going on here as well. There is lots of aftermarket support coming up. There are aftermarket slides, there are aftermarket grips, there are aftermarket triggers. There are so many options with the P320 now. A lot of people are only staying away from it because they think the high bore axis makes it hard to manage the recoil. Get over it. Learn to manage recoil. This is a fantastic firearm. 100% reliable through 500, I guess technically 600 rounds, and I'm guessing that it's going to go without a hitch through the next 1500 before I do my next review. That is my review of the P320X carry with the Polymer 80 grip frame. If you liked this review, go ahead and like and subscribe, and as always, I will catch you later.